Welcome to Let's Build a Zoo Dinosaur Island. I have 100 days to create a zoo of various dinosaurs which I can kill for their body parts, turn into steaks, or my personal favourite, create playgrounds out of their dead corpses. In order to generate maximum profit and be an overlord of pure evil, these are the things I'll have to do. Now there are 4 goals that I'll want to complete over this 100 days, and they include having $200,000 in cash, have a park rating of 1,500, which includes dinosaurs and attractions, also, having a generally nice looking zoo with nice enclosures. Just because I'm farming them doesn't mean I'm completely depraved. And finally, my last goal is having evil morality at the end of the 100 days. So without further ado, let's subject some pixelated dinos to extreme torment. Day 1 began and I needed to come up with a name for my torture park. Zoo. So I settled on calling it Danger Zone. These dinos had no idea what they were in for. Now that the zoo was open, I already had guests coming in to look at a big fat nothing. Maybe I should farm these people instead of the dinos. I also want to know the standard of zoos that these people are visiting, if this one is okay without any animals to be seen. After completing a brief tutorial, I got my first dino. However, it kind of didn't have any access to water, so I figured that would probably be a good start. So I provided with some water and headed out to the world map to excavate some more dinos, as this was going to be our primary source of receiving new test subjects / specimens. I received a new dinosaur and learnt my first stages of research. I built a new enclosure for the new dinosaur as well when I received my first moral choice. Sacrifice someone's dog so that our dinosaurs could have some sport, or return the dog to the owner. And you can bet your sweet cheeks we fed that good boy to a bloodthirsty dino. It was so shocking it made the news. After that dilemma, I built some shops so people could use retail therapy as a way to get over the doggo's death. Then my prehistoric cassowaries arrived. I took a moment to survey my handiwork, looking at our zoo coming together. I then went to the research hub to get some extra research done, some tropical juice and some extra enclosures so that we could make some more dino pens. I then finished off the day by buying another plot of land as well. The next day I built a new enclosure and unlocked more research, making my way to the evil factories that were located on the research chart when I got presented with another moral dilemma. To help people by letting them touch my dinosaurs? Like hell that was gonna happen. I'm not here to cure people of their issues, so we scrapped her and didn't bother helping her out. The next day our Brontotheriums arrived in their very basic habitat. Look at these guys, they're cute as. I then also learned the furnace research in order to crisp up any dinosaurs that stepped out of line. At the end of the first week, I made a little bit of profit so I could continue my enterprise of despair. I was then offered to hand in some dinosaur bones to a museum, as they had lost theirs, for a little bit of a cash injection, and you bet I took that sweet, sweet bone money, receiving a dope Rex skeleton statue in the process as well, and this thing looked badass. I expanded the zoo with some more shops and land and built a new enclosure for the new dinos that were incoming. The new dinosaurs were settling in nicely, unaware of the horrors that they were about to face, when I got approached by a winemaker who wanted to buy some dinosaurs to stomp on his grapes instead of people. And that kind of just makes sense, why would you use people when dinosaur feed is so much bigger? I grabbed some new research and the marsh enclosure, which I then also built as well. At the end of this week, my income was slowly increasing, which is exactly what we want to see in this enterprise. My new dinosaurs arrived in their marsh enclosure, and unfortunately I needed to provide them with some water and enrichment. Oh well, their corpses will help pay for the water bill when they're dead and gone. I then took some time to try and beautify the front entrance of the zoo so that it would lure people into a false sense of security that these dinosaurs were actually being looked after and weren't lined up to get grinded into parts. I was then approached by a demolitions expert to help me excavate a fossil faster, and so I built their enclosure and ordered 2 of the new Pachycephalosauruses. At the beginning of the new week, the Packies were complaining that they hadn't been fed. Oh well, I then spliced my first pair of dinos for a mutant hybrid. I bought more land to the north and also built some more enclosures up there so that I could multiply and get more dinosaurs, and I also got to work on building the drowning hazard for my guests in the middle of the zoo, because what could possibly go wrong? Okay. To finish off the day, I also built another enclosure of marsh and then transported some new Edmontosauruses to it. We had just unlocked these guys and I figured they'd be hefty boys, so we could make a pretty penny off them. The next day, I built an electricity siphon to steal power off the people in the nearest city so that I wouldn't have to pay the electricity bill.
Nice.
I then took a quick gander at my morality meter and it was looking positively evil at the moment. Perfect. The Edmontos arrived and enjoyed their sprinkler, unaware of the pain they'll soon be in. I then finished the drowning hazard in the middle of the zoo, bought some more land, and got my new, I can't even pronounce these guys, macrachinas? They look like baby Paraceratheriums. My gosh, that was a mouthful to say. I was then approached by Bernie the dinosaur, who offered to corrupt kids with product placement and subliminal messaging. And I'm all about that profit, so I let him do his thing. I then went ahead and started beautifying the zoo with some parks. That's it, I got nothing else. Except I do, because we actually built our first meat processing plant. Now a quick second here to take a look at the park that I built as well as the water area, and finally it was time to murder some prehistoric beings. Brutus was the first to become a lump of fur so I could see how the processor works. And after a bit of a wait, the Undertaker did eventually come in and removed the body to the chop shop. Just like that, the body kind of vanished. No sign of it carrying, but very sus on that part, making sure the guests don't know about it. We then got our second lot of deaths as well. They couldn't handle the death of Brutus and decided to just volunteered for the chop shop as well. I also moved it a little bit closer. I then built an enclosure for some Cjthechesauruses because I had just unlocked them on the map. So I transported those guys to their enclosure, and then I went ahead and took a look at the processor to see if it was working. And lo and behold, we were processing our first dino. Maximum profits, here I come. I also cloned a Paki so that we could breed them and get more of them, because I did look in the processor and they actually sold for more, and I checked the processor again to make sure it was working. Now I built a new enclosure for some Sarcos, and I didn't plan to kill these guys as I really like them. I even went ahead and made their enclosure actually pretty nice to my standards. Now this does get another makeover, but I was happy with how it looked. Then it was time to euthanize again. Yay me! So we killed off a couple more of these guys to get them into the processor. Any of the older ones or excess males I got rid of. Also built a warehouse so that I could sell the dino parts at the end of the week. I then added some dinos into a very ethically questionable sized enclosure. And then my Sarcos finally arrived. At least these guys had a nice place to live. King Sapphire approached me wanting to perform some death metal in a dinosaur enclosure, and I had to oblige him, obviously. I hope nothing bad happens to him. Well, he actually survived this time. He actually got such a kick out of it that he had to come back straight away, and still, he managed to escape death's clutches. The new dinos finally arrived and went in their tiny little enclosure. I did kind of feel bad for him. And then it was back to euthanizing. More of these guys, easy money, easy euthanizing. And then we decided to rip off Pokemon with Dinomon. And, you know, obviously I just had to agree to this. There's no way I wouldn't take the extra money. My Paki clone was ready to be put with the rest of the herd, and then I went ahead and started making up a new DNA'd pair with a Cjthecheesedj and a Sarcosuchus. So I got those guys cooking, and then I was ready to place my Pachytherium.
What is that?
Now this guy had the body of a Pachy and the head of a Brontotherium. What could possibly go wrong? I needed space, so I decided to euthanize the Macras, not realizing that they had just given birth. Well, you're now officially an orphan. Let me just help you with that and put you out of your misery. I'll save you the whole hassle of dealing with the big wide world.
Wow.
I feel slightly terrible about that one. The next day I unlocked the Mammoth. Heck yeah, he will fetch a pretty penny with his size. It was then time to say goodbye to the Chiros. These guys had served their purpose, being one of the first dinosaurs that we had to get people into the zoo. So I euthanized them all again, except for the baby. So the baby had to watch her parents die and then brutally die in the process as well. I promise I'm helping you, baby. After that harrowing experience, I built the smallest possible enclosure for the mammoths. They were going to have a lot of fun in there. I then spent some time making enclosures nice for the dinos that I actually liked. Now, the Brontotherium was one of them, and I also finished the front of the zoo, as you can see there. And I also built some extra seating area next to the water section, and I made the Edmontosaurus enclosure slightly nicer as well. The Amosauruses were relocated so that I could build a bigger pen for the mammoth. I decided that it was a little bit too cruel to keep them in that tiny little one they were in. My newest hybrid was also ready, the Cjthecheesedj, which had the body of a Cjthecheesedj and the head of a sarco. Now, this guy went in there, and to say he didn't fit in was kind of an understatement. I also got some Myelonias. The next day, I cured people that suffered from gumbiosis. Because I'm such a kind, caring person with my dinosaurs and let them be used for medical experiments, this cured multiple people of gumbiosis, which was an irrational fear of mushrooms which involved them shouting "Yahoo!" in a mildly offensive Italian accent as they destroyed the mushies. I then found some new Arctic dinosaurs and put them in a relatively small enclosure. Lucky they didn't need that much space. Now, I took a quick look at the warehouse to see how much profit we were making, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, as well as this, I also built an egg battery farm so that we could farm any eggs that my flyers would make, using the Dimorphodons first as the test subjects. I also built more processors to compensate for all the corpses that were arising. From where? I have no idea. Then it was finally time for some more dead Amosauruses. Now, these guys had been breeding like crazy, so they needed a little bit of a cull. I then also had to cull some Edmontosauruses. There was just too many of them. Too many. The egg battery was also working perfectly as well. We were getting quite a few eggs from that. But then it was time to cull an entire enclosure of unsuspecting packies. Look at them, bouncing around on the trampoline, going about their lives as if nothing's wrong. Well, I feel especially bad for the one that was on the trampoline. But good news, with all the meat byproduct I was producing, I could now buy new expansions for the zoo. Yay! I then fully committed to a ton of processors for that maximum profit. The next day I had unlocked Pteranodons, and I also destroyed the Pachy's enclosure. I also had to cull some of the Edmontosauruses before they overran the zoo, alongside the Amosauruses and the Brontotheriums. After the culling, I unlocked Raptors, Glyptodons, as well as Ornithomimuses. I hope I said that right. I then went and took a look at all the new dinos that had arrived. The next day I set some raptors up in a proper enclosure, and I was halfway to reaching my goal of 1500 rating and having $200,000 in cash. I then unlocked the Cjthecheesedjs as well as ground sloths. I once again had to murder the parents of this poor innocent child, as once again there were too many of these guys in the enclosure. However, this time the child got off scot-free and did survive. I took a look at the new big beefy boys, and I gotta say the Cjthecheesedj is an absolute freaking unit. Look at the size of this guy. I then also had a hybrid ready, the Woollytherium, which was a mammoth cross Brontotherium, and as well as that we unlocked a new dinosaur. Now these guys were going to live a very long, very prosperous life full of joys.
Are you sure about that?
Psych! Bet you didn't see that coming. These Brontos, on the other hand, were hopefully going to live a long life. Sapphire returned once again, however luck was not on his side this time, and he did die in the process of his heavy metal. I quickly checked the processors just to make sure that they were processing all the meat, and majority of them were. However, some weren't actually working all that great. For some reason they weren't receiving any of the corpses or anything like that. The ones at the back mainly. I'm not too sure why that was, but I was gonna probably get rid of some of these anyway because I feel like it's a tad bit too many. The egg battery was also doing great. However, one of the Dimorphodons had actually become infertile due to age. So you know what we had to do. I had to put her down as she wasn't gonna make me any money, and we're all about making money at this zoo. The Edmontos also needed another cull, as these guys breed like crazy. Look how bloody many there are of them. It's absolutely insane. As well as that, I also had reached my goal of having 200,000 in cash. Woohoo! The next day, the Sarcos were also getting a bit overpopulated, and I needed to send some of those to the chop shop, unfortunately. You can stop them from breeding, however, that would equate in less money. I didn't want that. Our new hybrid was also ready, the Velocidactyl, the body of a raptor, the head of a pterodactyl. Need I explain it more? The trikes were also looking a little bit cramped in their enclosure too. I also wanted to hire some more undertakers to help process all these bodies that were coming in. And for some reason, all the processors at the back just weren't taking any corpses. This one here had 11 corpses, whereas the ones at the back just had none. So it was kind of annoying, but I decided to start scrapping the processors, demolishing them in the process, and firing the useless sods that weren't contributing to my get-rich scheme. I also got some Ankies, some Parasaurs, and a cloned sloth as well because I did want to make a hybrid of that. And I placed them all in relative enclosures as well. I also got these super weird guys, which I'm not even going to try pronouncing their name, and they were just kind of chilling up there. The next day I unlocked a new dino from the volcano region and replaced the dinos in the egg battery with some PTs. These guys were slowing down production. We didn't like that one bit. I also took a look in my warehouse just to see how much money I was making. Come Friday, I'm in for a massive paycheck. I then also got a new dino and unlocked the abattoir. Now, this thing is pure evil. Just watch it work. It is absolutely horrifying. I was not expecting this. It's literally straight out of a freaking horror movie. This person just walks in and starts slaughtering the poor dinos. Luckily, I did want to clear this enclosure, but my god, it could have been a slightly less bloodthirsty. I then got assigned a new task, to make some dinosaur steaks. Heck, why not? I'm already processing their bodies. There is the steak factory. Look at that. Screams dinosaur steaks. I was then presented with a new choice. Donate a Bronto to Bob the Builder so he can use it for destruction. How the hell can I say no to that? There's even a picture of the goddamn Flintstone dino there. I had to give Bob a Bronto. The next few days were spent tidying up some enclosures, including making new ones for some of our favorites like the mammoth, as well as making the zoo look like it's not farming dinosaurs for billions of dollars. What? So I remade the Pteranodons enclosures, the Dimorphodons enclosures, the Sabertooths. I even donated some dinosaurs out of the goodness of my heart, just so that I could get rid of them quicker instead of processing them in the processor, because that would take forever then to get to the corpses and take them back. Now this enclosure here was for the Sabertooth tigers, which we had also unlocked, and I was really happy with how things were looking. I then went ahead and started making some decent sized enclosures for the dinosaurs that I wanted to farm. I mean keep, because now I'm not a total monster. I also went ahead and decorated them as well so that they could live in peace and nature before they went into the chop shop to be chopped into little tiny pieces. So we started off at the bottom part of the zoo, any of the enclosures that I hadn't already made looking decent. So our turtles, the Ankies, the Kentros, I had to cull some and donate some on the way so that I could clear the space for them and have a certain amount of them. But I think they looked pretty nice. The Parasaurs, obviously they needed a nice looking enclosure. I think that looked pretty damn good if you ask me. I think the zoo was looking very nice at this stage, to be honest. And I think making these enclosures nicer for the dinos is obviously going to make it nicer for the guests and make it nicer for us to look at. Sarko's got an upgrade in a larger enclosure, and the Brontos and Trikes were put together with a massive plains sort of enclosure, which I think turned out really awesome as well. The mammoths, their enclosure obviously is looking pretty plain at the moment, but I was able to do and work my magic and make a nice looking ice themed one. Same for the Sabertooths, a very plain looking enclosure with the ice. It's hard with the ice, I don't know why, but I figured I made it pretty nice with what I had given. There were some more decoration packs that I could have unlocked that I didn't exactly have access to, but I think I did a good job with what I had, and I think the PTs was also a pretty good one. My favorites though, the Brontos and the Sarkos. They were my favorites. Now it was time for the grand reveal of the zoo. So I had hit my goal of 1,500 rating. My money was in a great position with over $700,000. It was great. And you can see I was happy with all the dinosaurs enclosures. The zoo was looking absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. I definitely think we ticked the box of having a nice looking zoo and nice enclosures for our dinosaurs. That way they could still breed in relative peace while their offspring were processed in the processors far away from the public's eye. So I was just going over each of the enclosures and showing them. Now I could have put some more decorations throughout the walk paths at the northern section of the zoo where the flies and stuff like that were, but I figured the lampposts, the seats and the bins were actually pretty decent. I was really, like I said, happy with the Bronto enclosure. I think it looked great, and the flyers enclosure as well, because we just pretty much had trees. You couldn't really see much of the flyers, which in my opinion isn't really that much of a bad thing, you know. The Sarcos were great. I had to kill the Cjthecheesedj. He didn't belong there. He just needed to go. He was out of here. As well as that, these guys up here also had decent sized enclosures. Now these may look small, but with the animal, that's actually, they were happy with that sized enclosure. So they're happy, I'm happy. The raptor pen was also pretty cool. I did like the way that we had like volcanic rocks and stuff like that in it. I also built a volcanic section and seating area next to the raptors enclosure, as well as an ice section next to the ice areas. However, I didn't have some ice tiles to put down there, so it kind of didn't look that great there, to be honest. Saber-tooths looked awesome. The mammoths and their little friends also looked pretty good together, and I was happy about those. Now, this was the dinosaurs into meat area. I had gotten rid of the amount of processors I had down to 3 because each of these had 10 staff with them. So I thought that would be enough to process, and the warehouse was bringing in heaps and heaps of money. I'd also achieved my goal of getting the evil morality. Yes! Sitting at a massive 55% morality of evil, which is great. Now, I unfortunately did not unlock my favorite factory, which was the Dino Hollow Plant, which turns dinosaurs into playgrounds for kids. Maybe we can do that in a 200 days series. Nonetheless, guys, my 100-day journey was at its end for Let's Build a Zoo Dinosaur Island. So let me know what you guys thought of this and whether or not you'd like to see more of these. But nonetheless, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.